Chapter 10. Messengers of Peace. Mariinsky Palace. The peace conference is held at the Mariinsky Palace in Kyiv, the Baroque presidential residence that has witnessed centuries of Ukrainian history, from the grandeur of the Tsars to the dark days of Soviet occupation. Now it bears witness to another pivotal moment, as the warring factions come together to forge a path to peace. Ivan and Nadya arrive early, dressed in their best attire. Ivan wears a crisp, dark suit that he has borrowed from a friend, the fabric still carrying the faint scent of mothballs. Nadya chooses a simple but elegant dress, a deep blue that brings out the color of her eyes. She spends hours the night before trying to tame her unruly curls, wanting to look her best for this moment. But as they enter the grand hall, taking in the high ceilings, the glittering chandeliers, the rows of distinguished delegates, Nadya feels a sudden wave of doubt. Who is she to be here, among these important people? She is just a girl from a small town, a dreamer who has gotten lucky. Surely they will see through her, will realize that she doesn't belong. Ivan notices her hesitation, the way her steps falter on the polished marble floor. He reaches out and takes her hand, his grip warm and reassuring. "Hey," he says softly, leaning in close. "You've got this, girl. You belong here, just as much as anyone else." Nadya looks at him, sees the love and the belief shining in his eyes. She takes a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. He is right. She has earned her place here, through her hard work, her dedication, her unwavering commitment to the cause of peace. She isn't going to let her doubts hold her back. Not now, not when so much is at stake. They are shown to their seats at the large circular negotiating table, the polished wood gleaming under the chandeliers. Around them, the room buzzes with activity as diplomats, journalists, and observers take their places. At precisely 10 a.m., the moderator calls the room to order. In the sudden hush, Ivan reaches for Nadya's hand under the table, giving it a reassuring squeeze. They exchange a glance, a silent affirmation of their commitment to each other and to the task ahead. The first day is devoted to opening statements. One by one, the representatives take the floor, laying out their positions, their grievances, their hopes for the future. There are impassioned pleas and sharp accusations, moments of grandstanding and grudging concession. Through it all, Ivan and Nadya listen intently, taking notes and gauging the mood of the room. They know that their role here is not to dominate the conversation, but to guide it, to find the common ground that can serve as a foundation for real, lasting change. As the day wears on, the initial posturing begins to give way to more substantive discussions. Tentative proposals are floated, debated, refined. Ivan and Nadya work tirelessly, shuttling between the different factions, trying to build bridges and find compromises. It is exhausting work, both mentally and emotionally. There are moments of frustration, of setbacks that threaten to derail the whole process. But there are also breakthroughs, small miracles of understanding and empathy that give them hope. One such moment comes on the third day, during a particularly tense discussion about the status of the separatist regions. Tempers are flaring, voices rising when an older woman stands up from the separatist delegation. "I have lost 2 sons to this war," she says, her voice trembling with grief and anger. 2 bright, beautiful boys who will never come home. And for what? For a line on a map? For a flag? The room falls silent, the raw pain in her words cutting through the politics and the posturing. Ivan and Nadya watch as the woman turns to face her Ukrainian counterparts, her eyes welling with tears. "I don't want revenge," she says softly. "I don't want more mothers to feel this pain. I just want peace. I want a future for our children, for all our children. Can we not find a way to give them that?" In that moment, something shifts. The hardened lines of anger and mistrust soften, replaced by a glimmer of shared humanity. Slowly, hesitantly, the conversation begins to move forward again, but with a new tone of respect, of a willingness to listen and understand. It is a small step, but it is progress. And as the hours turn into days, as the proposals take shape and the agreements are hammered out, Ivan and Nadya begin to feel a growing sense of hope. There are still obstacles, still moments when it all seems impossible. But bit by bit, compromise by compromise, they are moving towards something historic, something that can change the course of their nation's future. And at the heart of it all is their love, the unshakable bond that has brought them to this moment. In the stolen glances across the negotiating table, in the brief touches of hands as they pass in the corridors, they draw strength from each other, a reminder of what they are fighting for. Dinner with the president. That evening, Nadya and Ivan are attending dinner with President Zelensky and his court. "Razum my sila," Ivan whispers as he straightens his tie, the first he's worn since before the invasion. "Together, we are strength." Nadya nods, smoothing the blue blazer she's borrowed from a colleague. Beneath it, her vyshyvanka, a traditional embroidered blouse that her babushka gave to her with patterns specific to the Poltava region, connects her to generations of Ukrainian women who faced hardship with unflinching dignity. Tomorrow, their peace proposal will reach the highest level of government. After months of refinement, advocacy, and growing support from civil society, they've been granted a slot for presentation in front of a global audience. Millions will watch the event in live streaming. "Nekviliuisia," Nadya tells him, seeing his nervousness. "Don't worry, they invited us because they need fresh ideas, because we speak for the people who've lived this war, not just military strategists." The early December cold blankets Kyiv as their official car approaches the heavily guarded government quarter. Air defense systems punctuate rooftops. Soldiers check their credentials multiple times before allowing them through successive security layers. The weight of the moment presses on them both. Their journey from that first day in the cafe to this presidential meeting seems impossible, yet somehow inevitable, as if all their documentation work, evacuation missions, and peace planning was always leading here. "Remember the sunflower woman?" Nadya asks suddenly as they wait in an anteroom, referencing the viral video from the war's early days. A Ukrainian grandmother offering sunflower seeds to Russian soldiers, telling them, "Put these in your pockets so at least sunflowers will grow when you die on our land." Ivan squeezes her hand. "We're planting different seeds today." The dinner includes more officials than they expected, not just presidential advisors, but military representatives, diplomatic staff, and economic experts. Their peace proposal has clearly touched a nerve in government circles, seeking alternatives to the grinding war of attrition. As they enter the dining room, Nadya and Ivan are struck by the understated elegance of the setting. The table was set with simple but beautiful crockery, the centerpiece a vase of fresh sunflowers, a symbol of Ukraine's resilience and hope. Standing to greet them is President Zelensky himself, his friendly smile and warm handshake immediately putting them at ease. "Nadya, Ivan," he says, his voice deep and sincere, "it's an honor to have you here. Your work, your dedication to our country, is an inspiration to us all." Nadya feels lump in her throat, overwhelmed by the recognition from the man who had become the face of Ukraine's resistance. Ivan, too, looks moved, his eyes shining with pride and gratitude. The grand dining room of the Mariupol Palace is filled with the soft murmur of conversation and the clinking of silverware. The long table is adorned with elegant floral arrangements and flickering candles, casting a warm glow over the gathered dignitaries. President Zelensky sits at the head of the table, surrounded by his closest advisors and key officials. As they take their seats a few places down, the conversation flows easily, ranging from shared memories of life before the war to the challenges of rebuilding a nation. Zelensky listens intently to their stories, his gaze sharp and focused, his questions thoughtful and probing. Then suddenly he turns to them, a curious and encouraging smile on his face. "Ivan, Nadya, I understand you have a proposal you'd like to share with us," he says, his voice carrying the weight of both authority and genuine interest. Ivan nods, taking a deep breath. "Yes, Mr. Fine President, thank you for this opportunity." He stands, drawing the attention of the room. "Our framework is built on 4 core principles: sovereignty, security, justice, and renewal." Nadya follows suit, standing beside Ivan. "We believe these principles are essential for a sustainable peace in Ukraine," she adds, her voice steady and clear. Ivan begins with the first principle: sovereignty. "We need to establish and reinforce Ukraine's sovereignty through international recognition and support. This means securing commitments from our allies to uphold our territorial integrity and sovereignty through diplomatic channels and defense support." Nadya continues seamlessly. "Security. We must enhance our national security by rebuilding and modernizing our military and law enforcement agencies. This will develop a robust defense infrastructure capable of deterring aggression and ensuring the safety of all citizens. The officials nod, listening intently. President Zelensky leans forward, his interest piqued. Justice, Ivan adds, his voice firm. We need to document and prosecute war crimes and human rights violations. Establishing a special tribunal to handle these cases will ensure that perpetrators are held accountable and victims receive justice. Nadya takes over, her passion evident. Renewal. We must rebuild our war-torn regions and restore essential services. Implementing infrastructure projects to rebuild homes, schools, hospitals, and utilities will foster economic recovery and community resilience. As they speak, the room is silent, the weight of their words sinking in. Ivan and Nadya then move on to the more detailed aspects of their plan. Reconciliation and dialogue, Nadya says. We need to facilitate national reconciliation through dialogue and community-building initiatives. Creating forums and workshops where citizens from different backgrounds can share their experiences will foster mutual understanding and healing. Ivan adds, grassroots initiatives are crucial. Empowering local communities to lead peace-building efforts will support grassroots organizations in developing projects that promote social cohesion, such as community centers, cultural exchanges, and educational programs. They outline their ideas for economic development, political reform, international cooperation, and education and awareness, each point met with thoughtful nods and occasional interjections from the officials. This approach incorporates what we've learned documenting war crimes in Bucha, Mariupol, and elsewhere, Nadya explains, referring to evidence they've collected. Justice cannot be negotiable. Pravda I spravedlivist, truth and justice, must be foundational to any sustainable peace. President Zelensky and the officials listen intently, occasionally interjecting with questions that probe the proposal's practicality, its diplomatic feasibility, its economic requirements. Ivan and Nadya address each point with the confidence of those who have considered these issues from every angle, not as theoretical problems, but as lived experiences. When they finish, the room is quiet for a moment, the weight of their proposal hanging in the air. Then, President Zelensky stands, raising his glass. To Ivan and Nadya, he says, his voice filled with admiration, your dedication and vision are an inspiration to us all. You've created something unique here. Let us work together to make this dream of a peaceful, prosperous Ukraine a reality, he adds. A bottom-up peace framework reflecting the voices of ordinary Ukrainians while addressing complex geopolitical realities. Zelensky leans forward, his elbows on the table, his eyes alight with interest. This is exactly what our country needs, he continues, his voice ringing with conviction. A peace that comes from the people, that is built on understanding and trust, not just on treaties and agreements. The room erupts in applause, and Ivan and Nadya exchange a look of relief and determination. They know the road ahead will be challenging, but with the support of their leaders and the strength of their convictions, they are ready to face whatever comes next. The discussion extends far beyond their allocated time. As evening stretches into early night, their proposal's strengths and vulnerabilities are dissected, its innovative aspects highlighted, its challenges acknowledged. Your section on cultural restoration is particularly compelling, notes a deputy minister of culture. Rebuilding not just infrastructure, but our heritage, our spadshina, is essential for national healing. Finally, the presidential chief of staff addresses them directly. The president is interested in your approach. He would like to incorporate elements of your framework into our official position. President Zelensky pauses, emphasizing that decision. Nadya, Ivan, I want you to present your peace framework at the upcoming national dialogue. Your voices, your vision, deserve to be heard at the highest levels. Nadya and Ivan exchange a glance, hardly daring to believe what they are hearing. To have the opportunity to share their ideas on an international stage, to contribute directly to the shaping of Ukraine's future, it is beyond their wildest dreams. We are honored, Ivan affirms, his voice thick with emotion. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for believing in us. Zelensky just smiles, his eyes crinkling at the corners. It is I who should be thanking you, he says softly, for reminding us of all of what we're fighting for for showing us the way forward. As the evening draws to a close, Nadya and Ivan leave the president's company with hearts full of hope and purpose. They know that the road ahead is not easy, that there will be obstacles and setbacks along the way. But they also know that they are not alone, that they have the support of their president, of their fellow Ukrainians, of all those who believe in the power of peace and the strength of the human spirit. Outside, emerging into the golden light of a rising moon, Ivan and Nadya can barely contain their elation. Their grassroots peace initiative, born on a small balcony during a moment of exhausted reflection, will reach the world. "It's unbelievable," Nadya exclaims in English, barely containing her excitement. "Ce neimovirno," she corrects herself immediately with a smile. Ivan pulls her into an embrace, lifting her briefly off her feet in the secured courtyard. Government officials smile indulgently at their youthful enthusiasm, a rare moment of uncomplicated joy in the otherwise somber proceedings of wartime governance. Hand in hand, they step out into the Kiev night, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, ready to build the Ukraine of their dreams, one conversation, one connection at a time. Soil of tomorrow. That night, their apartment becomes a celebration space. Friends from their volunteer network bring precious offerings: a bottle of Ukrainian-made wine saved for a special occasion, fresh cherries from someone's village relatives, homemade vareniki with potato filling. In wartime, such small luxuries represent profound generosity. Budmo, they toast, raising glasses in the traditional Ukrainian salutation that means simply, "Let us be." As their friends share stories and plans, Ivan watches Nadya move through the gathering. The war has transformed them both, her face thinner, her eyes carrying shadows of witnessed horrors, but also burning with purpose. When she catches him looking, her smile holds both their shared trauma and their hard-won hope. Later, as their friends depart before curfew, Nadya reaches for Ivan's hand. "Kodimo," she says softly, "come with me." She leads him to their small balcony, now brightened by potted sunflowers and herbs, small acts of cultivation amid destruction. From a hidden corner, she retrieves a small wooden box carved with traditional Hutzul patterns. "This belonged to my grandfather," she explains, opening it carefully. He carried it through Soviet labor camps after being arrested for Ukrainian nationalism in 1953. Inside lies a handful of rich black soil, chernozem, she says reverently, black earth, the most fertile soil in the world, Ukraine's greatest treasure. Taking his hand, she guides his fingers to touch the soil. "My grandfather told me our family has passed this earth from generation to generation since Cossack times. When Ukrainians were forcibly relocated to Siberia, Kazakhstan, anywhere the Soviets sent them, they would carry a small pouch of home soil. It kept them connected to Ukraine, no matter how far they were taken." The intimacy of this shared family tradition moves Ivan deeply. He understands she's inviting him into something more profound than their working partnership or even their romance. She's welcoming him into the lineage of memory and responsibility that defines Ukrainian identity. "During the Holodomor," she continues, "my great-grandmother buried family icons and this soil beneath the floorboards. The Soviets could take their food, their freedom, even their lives, but not their connection to this land." Ivan thinks of his own family history, his great-grandfather's resistance in the Ukrainian insurgent army, his grandmother's quiet preservation of language and traditions when Soviet authorities banned them, his parents' participation in Ukraine's independence movement in 1991. "We're part of something larger than ourselves," he says, finally understanding the full significance of their peace work. Not just our generation's fight, but a centuries-long struggle for Ukraine to determine its own future. Nadya nods, carefully closing the box of soil. "That's why our peace plan matters. It's not just about ending this war. It's about ensuring our children and grandchildren never face another." The mention of future generations creates a charged moment between them. In the midst of war, planning families seems almost defiant, yet increasingly their private conversations have ventured toward after peace, after rebuilding, after healing. "Ya tebe kokayu," Ivan says, the Ukrainian declaration of love feeling more profound than its English equivalent, not just for who you are, but for who we become together. Nadya's eyes shine in the fading light. In Ukrainian tradition, when a couple marries, they bring soil from both family lands to blend together, creating the foundation for their new home. She doesn't need to elaborate on the implication. Their kiss is gentle at first, then insistent. Passion weighted with purpose. The future they're fighting for, planning for, suddenly crystallizes into something deeply personal yet universal. The ancient human desire to build something lasting with someone beloved. Morning brings both resolution and new urgency. Their meeting with the UN General Assembly is scheduled for 3 p.m. today. They must refine their presentation, anticipate questions, strengthen vulnerable points in their proposal. Working side by side at their shared desk, they move with the synchronized efficiency of partners who anticipate each other's thoughts. Ivan focuses on security arrangements and technological solutions, Nadya on justice mechanisms and cultural preservation. We should include the vitananka tradition, she suggests, referencing the Ukrainian paper-cutting art that creates intricate patterns from simple materials. It's the perfect metaphor for our approach, creating beauty and structure from what remains after destruction. Their preparations are interrupted that morning by an urgent call from their military intelligence contact. Your peace proposal has attracted attention beyond Ukraine, Major Kovalenko informs them, his voice tense. We have credible intelligence that Russian operatives have been tasked with preventing your meeting with the General Assembly. The warning lands like a physical blow. Their work, their documentation of war crimes, their evacuation operations, their peace advocacy, has made them targets before, but never at this level. What exactly does that mean? Ivan asks, his arm instinctively moving around Nadya's shoulders. It means you need protection, the major answers. We're sending a security team. Don't leave your apartment. Don't communicate about yesterday's presidential meeting on any electronic devices. After the call ends, they sit in stunned silence. The threat transforms their peace work from theoretical to dangerously tangible. They've touched something that powerful interests want suppressed. They're afraid, Nadya realizes, her initial fear hardening into determination. Afraid that a Ukrainian vision of just peace might actually succeed where their violence has failed. Ivan nods slowly, his programmer's mind already adapting to new parameters. So we change approaches. If they're targeting our meeting, we need to ensure our ideas reach the global audience, even if we can't physically be there. We will be there, Nadya exclaims supportively. They spend the next few hours creating contingency plans, duplicating their materials, recording video presentations, identifying trusted intermediaries who could deliver their proposal if necessary. The military security team arrives before midday, transforming their apartment building into a discreet fortress. The next 2 hours pass in a strange combination of intense work and enforced isolation. Their normal volunteer operations continue remotely, but their movements are restricted, their communications monitored for safety. This is how dissidents lived during Soviet times, Nadya observes, as they prepare lunch in their kitchen, security personnel stationed outside their door, creating dangerous ideas under constant surveillance. Except now, the surveillance is protecting us, Ivan points out. Ukraine has changed. We're fighting for a system where ideas are valued, not suppressed. As they are about to leave the apartment and reach Mariunsky Palace, they receive news that transforms their personal stakes in the peace process. Katerina calls from western Ukraine, where she's been caring for baby Miroslav, their rescued godchild. They found his family, she tells them, voice trembling with emotion. His mother is alive, evacuated to Poland. She's been searching for him for months. The miraculous reunion of mother and child, a rare happy ending amid countless tragedies, feels like an auspicious sign. One family's healing, multiplied across millions of Ukrainians, becomes the peace they're fighting for. In that moment, despite security concerns and the momentous meeting approaching, Ivan and Nadya allow themselves to dream beyond the war. On their protected balcony, surrounded by growing sunflowers, they speak of possibilities that once seemed forbidden. After peace, Nadya begins, a game they've played with increasing seriousness. I want to take you to the Carpathian Mountains, to show you the meadows where my grandmother taught me to identify healing herbs, to hear the traditional songs of the Hutsul people, to drink spring water so pure it tastes like liquid light. After peace, Ivan continues, I want to rebuild my family's house in the village outside Poltava, to show you where I spent summers as a child, where the apricot trees bloom so abundantly it looks like pink snow falling. After peace, Nadya whispers, moving closer, I want to blend our family soils, as tradition demands, to build something that will outlast both the war and us. The proposal hangs between them, neither quite a question nor a declaration. A shared vision of a future they're working to create, not just for Ukraine, but for themselves. Ivan's answer comes in the form of a carved wooden ring he's been secretly working on during late nights, a simple band patterned with the geometric designs of traditional Cossack carvings. I made this, he says, presenting it to her, from an oak branch that fell in Mariinsky Park during the first week of invasion. I thought, if something beautiful could be created from what was broken. Nadya accepts the ring with hands that tremble slightly, all her usual composure transformed to vulnerability. Tak, she says simply. Yes, answering a question that didn't need to be asked. They seal this promise like they've sealed all their most important commitments, not with grand gestures, but with the quiet certainty of those who have tested their bond in the crucible of war and found it unbreakable. Dawn breaks on the day of their presidential meeting with air raid sirens, a harsh reminder that their dreams of peace remain contested. Their security team efficiently moves them to shelter, then to an armored vehicle for transport to the heavily guarded government district. As they approach the palace, Ivan reaches for Nadya's hand. Razom do Paramohi, he says, together to victory. But the victory they seek is not just military triumph. It's the harder, more complex victory of a just and lasting peace. They enter the historic building carrying not only their meticulously prepared peace proposal, but the soil of Nadya's ancestors in its carved box, a tangible reminder of what they're fighting to preserve. Their steps are steady, their purpose clear. Whatever happens in the meeting ahead, they have already achieved something profound. They have planted seeds of peace in soil made fertile by centuries of Ukrainian resilience. And like the sunflowers that have become symbols of their nation's defiance, these seeds will grow toward the light, no matter how dark the present moment may seem. What peace looks like. That afternoon brings Nadya and Ivan in front of the representatives of the United Nations General Assembly. The hall stretches before them, a vast chamber of curved wood and green marble, where the fate of nations has been decided for generations. Ivan stands at the entrance, momentarily frozen by the magnitude of the moment. Beside him, Nadya adjusts the blue and yellow ribbon pinned to her lapel, her other hand firmly clasped in his. We've come all this way, she whispers. Indeed they have, from a Kiev bomb shelter to the world stage, from documenting atrocities to architecting peace. The journey spans only 10 months chronologically, but feels like several lifetimes. Their meeting with President Zelensky last night had exceeded all expectations. Not only had he embraced elements of their grassroots peace framework, but he'd recognized in them something essential: authentic voices who could speak to both Ukrainian suffering and Ukrainian vision. When the tentative peace negotiations finally began, he made an unprecedented decision, including civilian voices, their voices, in Ukraine's delegation. Now, as the historic vote on the Ukraine peace accord approaches, they've been granted 20 minutes to address the General Assembly. 20 minutes to distill all they've witnessed, learned, and fought for. Hotova, ready? Ivan asks, the simple word laden with meaning between them. Nadya nods, reaching up to straighten his tie, the same one he wore last night, now a talisman of sorts. They enter the hall together, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes upon them. Diplomats from 193 nations, journalists, observers, all waiting to hear from these unexpected peace ambassadors, whose journey from volunteer evacuators to international advocates has captured global imagination. As they take their places at the podium, Ivan removes from his pocket a small wooden box carved with traditional patterns. Inside rests a handful of Ukrainian black soil, the chernozem from Nadya's family tradition, now mingled with earth from his ancestral village. Throughout their diplomatic missions, this soil has traveled with them, a tangible reminder of what they're fighting to protect. The Assembly President introduces them briefly: Ivan Alexandrovich Mikhalchuk and Nadezhda Mikhailivna Nadiko, representatives of Ukrainian civil society and contributors to the peace framework. As Ivan steps to the microphone, he feels Nadya's steadying presence beside him, her quiet strength flowing into him as it has through countless dangers and challenges. "Honorable delegates," he begins, his voice stronger than he expected, "we stand before you not as politicians or diplomats, but as witnesses. 10 months ago, we were ordinary citizens, a software developer and a translator, until war transformed us, as it transformed millions of Ukrainians." The hall falls completely silent as Ivan speaks without notes, his words carrying the authenticity of lived experience. "We have evacuated children from bombarded cities. We have documented war crimes in Bucha and Mariupol. We have held the hands of mothers searching for missing sons, of elders who lost everything, of children who witnessed horrors no child should ever see." He pauses, his emotion visible but controlled. "But we have also witnessed the extraordinary resilience of the human spirit. In bomb shelters, we saw strangers become family. In devastated villages, we saw neighbors rebuild together. In the darkest moments, we saw ordinary people become heroes through simple acts of compassion." Ivan gestures to the wooden box on the podium. "This box contains soil from our homeland, the black earth of Ukraine, famous throughout history for its fertility. Our ancestors carried such soil when forced from their homes during the Holodomor, during Soviet deportations, during generations of attempted erasure." He opens the box, revealing the dark earth within. "This soil holds our history. Centuries of struggle, of survival, of culture that refused to be destroyed. But more importantly, it holds our future. For what is soil but the medium in which new life grows?" Nadya steps forward now, their choreography seamless after months of joint presentations. Her voice carries clearly through the vast chamber. "The peace accord you will vote on tomorrow emerged from many sources, from diplomatic negotiations, from international law principles, from security experts. But its heart came from the voices of ordinary Ukrainians who refused to let suffering define our future." She continues with the precision that made her an excellent translator, each word carefully chosen. "This accord is unique in modern peace agreements because it centers not just borders and security arrangements, but justice, healing, and cultural restoration. It recognizes that true peace requires not just the absence of violence, but the presence of justice." Throughout the chamber, delegates listen with rapt attention. This is not the usual diplomatic speech, but something rarer, authentic testimony from those who have lived the journey from war to nascent peace. Ivan takes over again, moving to the core of their message. "When we began documenting war crimes, we did so because we believed truth must be preserved. When we started drafting peace proposals in a bomb shelter, we did so because we believed a better future had to be imagined before it could be created." His voice grows more passionate. "What began in that shelter, ordinary citizens refusing to surrender their right to shape their own future, has evolved into the framework before you. A framework that recognizes Ukraine's sovereignty, ensures accountability for war crimes, provides security guarantees, and establishes the most comprehensive reconstruction plan since the Marshall Plan." Nadya steps forward again, her composure illuminated by inner fire. "But this accord is more than a diplomatic document. It represents a choice to believe that justice is not negotiable, that accountability is possible, that international law can be more than an ideal." She looks out across the assembly, making eye contact with delegates from countries large and small. Every nation represented here today has known conflict, has faced the choice between vengeance and justice, between despair and reconstruction. Ukraine chooses justice. Ukraine chooses healing. Ukraine chooses a future where our children will know peace as their inheritance, not merely as a fragile interlude between conflicts. Ivan moves closer to Nadya, their shoulders touching as they stand united before the world. "Tomorrow you will vote on this accord," he says. "But today, we ask you to remember what gives any peace agreement its power, not just the signatures of leaders or the deliberations of diplomats, but the hope of ordinary people who dream of living without fear." His voice catches slightly as he continues. We have a godson, Miroslav. He was just 3 months old when we rescued him from a filtration camp. His mother had been deported to Russia, his father killed defending Mariupol. For 8 months they were separated, each believing the other lost forever. The hall is utterly silent as he shares this personal story. Last autumn, through international humanitarian organizations established by this accord's preliminary frameworks, they were reunited. When Miroslav's mother embraced her child after believing him lost forever, she said something I will never forget. She said, Os tek vyhliadає mir. This is what peace looks like. Emotion ripples through the assembly. Several delegates discreetly wipe tears. Not just documents or treaties, Ivan continues, but families reunited, truth acknowledged, justice served, communities rebuilt. Nadya steps forward to take the final part, her shoulders squared and her head held high. As she begins to speak, her voice is steady and clear, ringing out across the room with a quiet strength that seems to fill the very air. But even as her words paint a picture of hope and resilience, of a future where Ukraine is whole and free once more, there is a glimmer of emotion in her eyes. Tears shine there, catching the light like tiny diamonds, a testament to the depth of her feeling, to the weight of all that has been lost and all that is yet to be won. And yet, she does not falter, does not waver. She speaks on, her voice a beacon in the darkness, a promise that even in the face of unimaginable adversity, the spirit of Ukraine will not be broken, will not bend, will not yield. In that moment, she is not just Nadya Nadiko, but the embodiment of an entire nation's unbreakable will, the living proof that hope, in the end, will always triumph over despair. Then she begins, her voice filled with conviction. First, immediate ceasefire and humanitarian corridors, emphasizing with her voice the weight of her statement so that it could sink well in the heads and hearts of the UN delegates. We call for an immediate ceasefire and the establishment of humanitarian corridors to halt hostilities and allow safe passage for civilians and aid. This will reduce immediate suffering and build trust between the parties. Ivan continues. Second, international peacekeeping force. We propose the deployment of a neutral international peacekeeping force to monitor the ceasefire and ensure compliance. This will provide security and stability in conflict zones, preventing further escalation and protecting civilians. Nadya adds, perfectly coordinating the timing of her intervention with Ivan's. Third, decentralization and autonomy. We advocate for greater autonomy for the contested regions within Ukraine while maintaining our sovereignty. This will address local grievances and reduce tensions by allowing these regions to manage their own affairs, including language and cultural policies. Ivan nods. Fourth, joint economic development initiatives. We propose launching joint economic development projects in the contested regions, funded by both Ukraine and Russia, with international oversight. This will rebuild infrastructure, create jobs, and stimulate economic growth, fostering cooperation and reducing economic disparities. Nadya pauses for a moment, allowing murmurs from the audience to ease before continuing. Fifth, War Crimes Tribunal and Truth Commission. We call for the establishment of a tribunal to prosecute war crimes and a truth commission to document and acknowledge atrocities committed by all sides. This will ensure justice for victims, promote healing, and prevent future violations. Ivan speaks with determination. Sixth, security guarantees and neutrality. Ukraine commits to a neutral status, not joining any military alliances, in exchange for security guarantees from Russia and international powers. This will alleviate Russian security concerns while ensuring our sovereignty and territorial integrity. The murmurs increase, but Nadya carries on, building up on her excitement. Seventh, cultural and educational exchange programs. We propose implementing cultural and educational exchange programs between Ukraine and Russia to promote mutual understanding and reconciliation. This will foster people-to-people connections, reduce prejudices, and build a foundation for long-term peace. Ivan continues. Eighth, energy cooperation agreement. We advocate for negotiating an energy cooperation agreement that ensures stable and fair access to energy resources for both countries. This will reduce energy-related tensions and promote economic interdependence, benefiting both nations. Nadya speaks passionately. Ninth, international monitoring and support. We call for the establishment of an international monitoring body to oversee the implementation of the peace agreement and provide ongoing support. This will ensure compliance with the agreement, address emerging issues, and maintain international engagement. Ivan concludes. 10th, gradual demilitarization. We propose implementing a phased demilitarization plan, reducing military presence in contested areas over time. This will build confidence and reduce the risk of renewed conflict, allowing for a focus on rebuilding and reconciliation. Nadya looks around the assembly, her eyes filled with hope. Distinguished delegates, our plan is ambitious, but it is grounded in the realities of our lived experiences. We believe that with your support, we can turn this vision into reality. Together, we can build a peaceful, prosperous Ukraine and set an example for the world. There is a Ukrainian proverb, Mir katam, vina palatam, peace to cottages, war to palaces. It reminds us that peace must serve ordinary people, not just powerful interests. She reaches for the box of soil, closing it carefully. Like this soil, Ukraine has been subjected to attempts at destruction throughout history. Yet always life returns, always the wheat grows again, always our people rebuild. Her gaze sweeps the assembly, powerful in its quiet intensity. We are not naive. We know the peace process ahead will be difficult. We know healing takes longer than destruction, but we have seen the alternative. We have documented it, evacuated its victims, mourned its dead. Ivan joins her for the conclusion, their voices harmonizing in a way that makes their words more powerful than either could achieve alone. We stand before you as witnesses to both the worst and the best of humanity. We have seen unspeakable cruelty, but also transcendent compassion. We have seen efforts to erase a culture, but also its irrepressible persistence. Nadya continues, what does not exist in our hearts does not exist in the world. Ivan completes their message. Peace begins not with treaties, but with the determination that cruelty will not have the final word, that justice matters, that truth prevails, that even from the blackest soil of suffering, new life can grow. Together they conclude simply, Ukraine chooses peace with justice. We ask you to stand with us in this choice. The silence holds for a heartbeat after they finish. Then from somewhere in the back, applause begins. It spreads like a wave, delegates rising to their feet in a standing ovation that transcends diplomatic protocol. Not the polite applause of formal proceedings, but the genuine response to authentic truth. As they step back from the podium, Nadya looks at Ivan, her eyes shining with pride, with love, with the weight of their shared journey. In this moment, they are more than two young Ukrainians full of hope, more than activists or documentarians or humanitarian helpers. They are messengers of peace, witnesses to history, and architects of possibility. Snowflakes. Later, after interviews and congratulations, they find a quiet moment in the palace's north garden. Snow falls gently around them, the December chill reminiscent of their first days in the Kyiv shelter. We did it, Nadya says softly, snowflakes catching in her hair. We just talked, Ivan responds with characteristic humility. The vote still happens tomorrow. She shakes her head, taking his hands in hers. We carried the voices that wouldn't have been heard otherwise. The babushka from Bucha, the children from Mariupol, the volunteers who died helping others evacuate. We made them part of this peace. Around them, the statue of Empress Maria Alexandrovna in the Mariinsky Park, a symbol of Ukraine's complex history with Russia, stands as a silent witness to this moment of change, a reminder of the long and winding path that has led them to this pivotal point in their nation's story. Ivan looks at it, then back at the extraordinary woman who has walked through fire beside him. The Mariinsky Palace served as a residence for Russian royalty during a period when much of Ukraine was under Russian imperial control. The Empress statue, as a representation of Ukraine's historical ties to Russia, becomes a poignant backdrop for Ivan and Nadya's present-day struggle. Its presence feels almost like a living presence to the momentous events unfolding, underlining the weight of history that hangs over the peace negotiations. When we first met, before the invasion, he reminds her, you were planning to document every oblast in Ukraine for your travel blog. She smiles, the expression softening the determination that now permanently marks her features. I still will. Only now it will be about reconstruction, about renewal. Ivan pulls her closer, their breath mingling in the cold air. Our children will know a different Ukraine than we did. The mention of children, once theoretical, now a hope they dare to plan for, warms the space between them. Nadia's hand moves instinctively to her abdomen, a gesture Ivan doesn't miss. Her smile confirms what he suddenly suspects. Spravdi? He whispers. Really? She nods, tears spilling freely now. Tak, I confirmed it yesterday. I wanted to wait until after the speech. Joy crashes through Ivan like a physical force. In this moment of perfect culmination, their work recognized, peace advancing, new life beginning, the circle feels complete. From bearing witness to horror, they have progressed to bearing new hope. He lifts her gently, spinning them both as snowflakes swirl around them. Their laughter, a sound that once seemed lost forever during the darkest days of Bucha and Mariupol, rings out in the garden. Tomorrow will bring the vote, the continuation of the long, complex process of building lasting peace. There will be setbacks, compromises, difficult days ahead. The reconstruction of their beloved Ukraine will take decades, not years. But tonight, in this garden, with snow falling like blessings around them, they allow themselves to fully inhabit the triumph of the present moment. The triumph not just of survival, but of transformation, of darkness turned toward light, of documentation turned toward creation, of witness turned toward vision. As the snow falls softly on Kiev, this young couple stands embraced in the once a royal garden, no longer just survivors or witnesses or even peace advocates. They have become what their war-torn nation needed most. Messengers of a peace anchored in truth, justice, and the indomitable Ukrainian spirit that has survived centuries of attempts at erasure. Behind them, the garden stands silent in the snow, waiting for the day when children, including their own, will walk its alleys in celebration of a peace not merely negotiated, but earned, preserved, and made real through the courage of ordinary people who refused to surrender their right to shape a more just world. Slava Ukraini, even whispers, the traditional salutation holding new depth. Heroyam Slava, Nadya responds. Glory to the heroes, including the unsung ones who evacuated neighbors, documented truths, shared food, maintained humanity in inhuman conditions. And in this moment, surrounded by gently falling snow in a garden dedicated to peace, they are more than messengers. They are the message itself, that even from the darkest soil of suffering, new life will always find its way toward light.